Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth alpha testing first pass for the very changed Arms Warrior. So, this video, we will try to wrap up everything sort of as a build by build basis, so that of course you can figure out what your thoughts and comments are toward the Arms Warrior in the YouTube comments. So of course hit me up on Twitter. Either way works, because there are definitive numbers of things that work together and others that just don't. And versus the builds that Arms has now, which we did a 4-hour testing junket today, about 3.5 with some intermittencies here and there, but you can always tell which specs during testing have seen way more attention because of either issues or problems or pratfalls that are happening in Legion now, to how they're reforming and rebuilding these specs going forward. So if you missed the testing, of course, the whole VOD will be uploaded here on the channel. All the VODs are here. All of Warlock, Hunter, and Paladin first passes are done right here on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe right here to the YouTube channel, if you want to keep up to date with all the testing in the future, of course, everything will have 2 passes. This is the first pass, getting us a new baseline for what changes have occurred once our artifact weapons are gone, what is staying, what has been removed, what has been reworked, rejiggered, etc. That is all happening right here in the first pass. Of course, you can also watch on the Twitch live stream, link down below, where all the testing does happen and all the side gameplay stuff that I do over there if you would like to do so. You can also check out my channel guide, which the guide has a one section that has, you can look at the past sections too from older expansions, but for Legion itself, there was all the testing I did. That's all categorized right there. But for Battle for Azeroth, new tab at the bottom, you can see what specs are done, links to YouTube videos and the VODs all right there. But this is our straight back boy that we'll be testing on for all the warrior stuff. I will open this up with that I wanted to test on a gnome, but there are no target dummies still in Borealis, the Alliance capital. So unfortunately, we are not a gnome. Hopefully we'll be a gnome for our second passive warrior, just because it's hilarious to be a gnome warrior, because they're so tiny, but their weapons are so massive, like they're anime characters. But the orc male gets straight backed in Battle for Azeroth. However, once you go into combat, you are a normal hunched orc, by the way. You are just the standard orc animations all happen, but when you're not in combat, you are, of course, the straight-backed boy. But that is, of course, just a little bit of a disclaimer there. If you were curious if they're all their animations, you'll see, of course, throughout this whole video, how their animations play out. But their animations, when they are doing things in combat, are the exact same. It might be different for healers, maybe if you play an orc caster or orc healer, that might be a little different. But when you are doing damage, it is all the same. It is all the same types of animations you have seen before on your orc right now. It's just somewhat different with how out of combat you look. Also, the sudden death procs right off the bat here. Nice. Overall, Arms Warrior has seen significant overall changes, but a lot of the core functionality you're used to is the same. We will start at the back of the spellbook. You can ignore any of the talents that I have selected right now, or any of the other bonuses, in particularly 2 charges of overpower you see down there. Do not worry about that, or the procs you may have seen, or 2 charges of charge. Those are talents. We'll go through all that in a moment. We're going to basically go over your utility and then go over your builds, how they work together. But the core of the class, Tactician, has been changed. It is now a 0.90, just under a 1% chance per rage spent. Oops, sorry about that. Per rage spent. So that means if you spend 100 rage, you have a 90% chance if an ability costs that much, right? So every rage, a 0.9% chance per to reset the remaining cooldown of Overpower. On live right now, it's Colossus Smash. Hello, my orc friend. You are not a straight back boy. That's unfortunate. You can see the difference. That's actually kind of cool. You can see the difference between the two of them. You will get a reset on Overpower. On live right now, it is Mortal Strike, I believe, and Colossus Smash. Yes, a 0.75% chance per rage spent to reset CS and Mortal Strike. That is different now. Overpower is a 12-second recharge, not reduced by haste. You only have one charge baseline. You're going to hear the Tome of Tranquil Mind pop up a lot in this one. We'll be changing our spec around quite a bit. But you overpower the enemy, critically striking them for an amount of physical damage that cannot be blocked, dodged, or parried. Currently, as you saw there, it also has the same animation as Pummel, which is the shoulder chunk right there, which is unfortunate. I did put in my feedback that it would be nice if the Blade Master Arms Warrior wasn't using his shoulder charge for his overpower ability, or if Pummel wasn't the exact same animation. It does cheapen it a little bit that your interrupt is also in your core rotational abilities, animation-wise. This, however, has sort of the Focused Rage talent, which I believe right now, yeah, Focused Rage, which everyone loves so much on live, right? I know, I hear the YouTube comments right now, you just love Focused Rage. Where you focus your rage into the next Mortal Strike, increasing damage by 30% up to 3 stacks off the global cooldown at 20 rage. So Overpower, which is a talent right now, moved to baseline, and it sort of has the same mechanic. It doesn't cost anything, but you have 1 charge or 2 charges depending on talents, and it does 20% increased damage on your next Mortal Strike up to 2 stacks. So they moved this core, almost required Focused Rage playstyle, pulled it off into Overpower, and that is what you'll be doing with the Arms Warrior when you get your resets, because you want to spend your rage, and you also want to reset your Tactician procs to reset your Overpower to then have more powerful Mortal Strikes. Mortal Strike is relatively unchanged. Cooldown reduced by haste, of course. It costs 30 rage now, up from 20, which I believe is the current rage cost you have on live. Yes. What is it? Yeah, it's 20 if the database will load. Yeah, 20. The effectiveness of healing is the exact same 25%. But as we will go over this video, there's a lot of changes to how rage is built and spent. So the 30 rage is just going to be a baseline change overall in battle. It doesn't really mean it's going to be less effective or less often. The rotation is still rather slow and methodical as Arms Warrior does play. Your mastery, if you were looking at that, is now Deep Wounds, which Deep Wounds damage is increased by 1%, which is your mastery percentage, which is actually double what your character frame says. So your character frame says 36%, but it's 44. But it's not double exactly. It adds, or it used to, it adds 8% more because there's a baseline amount. But if I take off all of my gear, which is why this is confusing, the mastery scaling on an orc, on our orc. I was going to say we're about to get naked orc, so, you know, hide your kids, hide your wives, is that you have 8% mastery base, but it's 16% bleed damage. So there is a baseline amount that it affects, but then if you put back on all of our gear, why does the math change to not just be your mastery plus 8? Wrong X. Because it's 36%, but then the mastery tooltip says 44, which isn't double, which the 8 to 16 was double. There's just an extra 8% that's added on, which may or may not be a tooltip or a database error. That is just currently how it is. Normally when a mastery on a tooltip on your paper doll says like 8%, and then another part of it is 16%, there's a just flat doubling that happens on one of the effects of your mastery. Or in the case of, say, Enhancement Shaman, a fraction of the mastery is the additional reset chance, or proc chance, rather, on Wind Fury, or the reset on Stormbringer. So this is weird, but there's just an additive 8% that's just tossed in there. But the bleed damage is attack power based, then modified by mastery with an additional amount modified by versatility. However, the math for Deep Wounds is all over the place right now and isn't really proper. So Deep Wounds is supposed to tick, it says, over 3 seconds. And quite literally, the debuff that's on the target lasts for 5. And it ticks 4 times and has a partial extra tick at the end here where it has your mastery ticks 3 times, and then we reverse engineer the math on this 4th tick. It's actually your mastery rating and your versatility rating just put together behind the attack power modifier, but it's just like 1 tick worth. It's not... Our notes on this for the bug report is quite literally almost half a page on just deep wounds. It also does not ignite. And it's possible that deep wounds is ticking every 0.75 seconds in 3 seconds to give 4 ticks. But then that would mean there would be haste modifiers. There is no haste modifiers or anything about haste involved in deep wounds at all. It only ticks that many times regardless of haste. We have done extensive back and forth on this during the alpha junket. You can go through that whole hour of back and forthing and trying to deconstruct this ability. So there's just either a tooltip error, a math error, or something's not being put together, because this only does 1300 damage. It quite literally just ticked for 447 3 times plus 402. That's already way more damage than the tooltip says. So something is just wrong, but obviously it's brand new. On that same note, Prot still has deep wounds, by the way, but it is only attached to Thunderclap and I think Revenge, and it's a flat amount. There's no scaling with it, whereas the deep wounds for arms is very much a scaling factor with your mastery, which I don't know if that's going to change how arms cares about their stats. Do they want a certain amount of haste and then go crit mastery or mastery crit? I'm not sure, because this is going to be a passive, very consistent amount of damage over the course of all encounters for arms, versus your mastery now is just all the CS window, and the reset of the CS window is all that matters, which makes mastery kind of worthwhile. But isn't it all just haste, mastery, mastery, haste? You don't care about any other stat versus whatever, and crit is whatever. So we'll have to see if mastery takes a different place in the organization of what you care for your secondary stats. Granted, 3 of those are going to be just Azerite gear highest eye level wins for the most part, but that is your mastery as it is now. Only applies on Mortal Strike, Cleave if talented, Execute, and Blade Storm. So Blade Storm is still here as your main cooldown, still a 1.5 long cooldown, still makes you spin to win with that amazing FPS drop once you actually go into combat with it. But as deep wounds only reapplies, it just stays stacked at the amount. There's no pandemic and there's no igniting for deep wounds. It just keeps refreshing the dot overall. So Blade Storm is still there. And you may be wondering, where's Battlecry? Or it's called Recklessness now, actually. Thank the freaking devs. Colossus Smash, as it still is here, is your main cooldown now. There is no way in the base kit to reset Colossus Smash, because you basically have to treat this now like Battlecry, like Recklessness. So it deals the heaviest amount of damage in a single button press in the whole Warrior toolkit outside of Execute. And it increases the damage you deal to the target by a flat 30%. I will go right here to the talents right now, just so we don't have to keep going over this back and forth. Your talent or your perk Warbreaker from your artifact weapon right now from Stromkar is right here. So you can either use the untalented single target version of Colossus Smash, or you can talent into Warbreaker, which is the exact same damage and attitude and everything that you need about it. Same damage-wise, pattern, all that kind of stuff, but it is an AoE. So it's a combination of your Mortal Strike animation from the other side, the blue swirl anyway, but then it applies the Colossus Smash window in an AoE around the warrior. Within 8 yards of the landing, kind of has that blue thunder clap crackle on the ground there. So that's the other way you can use it. So you do have your artifact trait spell brought forward so far, and it is right here, called Warbreaker. We'll turn that off for when it comes back around, because Warbreaker, it only really works in like one talent build, and we'll see more about that in the coming minutes of this. But Slam, still baseline, still your 20 rage, still your basically your forced auto attack in a way. That is still your way to weave in spending rage to reset Tactician, of course. And as you saw there, the overall rotation plays out pretty much like this. Barring procs, you get tactician procs, you hit your slams. Right now, because I have 2 stacks of it, and then when you have the moments to get extra damage in there, a sudden death proc, get that into the CS window. Never mind, I messed it up. Then, of course, you have this as the main rotation. You want to spend rage, reset overpower, buff your mortal strikes, and leaving your slams. And, of course, time your big burst around your main cooldown of Colossus Smash. That being said, everything else is about the same for arms, except also Sweeping Strikes moved from a talent and is now baseline. Has a 25-second cooldown, where for the next 10 seconds, your Overpower, Mortal Strike, Colossus Smash, Slam, Execute, single target abilities, only single target abilities, will hit 1 additional nearby target within 8 yards for 100% of the damage done. Compared to the current version, where it is the toggle on and off where Mortal Strike and Execute hit 2 additional nearby targets. Sweeping Strikes now is also with Overpower and Slam. And of course, the Colossus Smash spread window. But if you use, like we just showed with Warbreaker, there's no synergy there because Warbreaker is already AoE. So this only affects your single target abilities, but it does move 100% of the damage that they would do to a nearby target. So there's your Mortal Strike, your Slam, your Overpower, and your Executes all hit. There we go. And your, yeah, there we go. Those all work with a 2-target cleave, the main target +1. That is your Sweeping Strikes baseline. Rallying Cry is back. I mean, sorry, Commanding Shout has been rechanged to Rallying Cry. Still the HP increase. Intimidating Shout is still here, of course. Your Heroic Throw, which is your Malchezaar Axe throw, is right there. Heroic Leap is the same. Hamstring remains the same. Die by the Sword, the exact same charge as well. Berserker's Rage. Battle Shout is now your additional raid utility as a warrior, which is back to the 10% attack power increase. Not an aura. So I hope you're all ready when someone dies in your dungeon or your raid to waste a global cooldown on rebuffing that person when they get battle rezzed, if they get battle rezzed. Because that's a mechanic that we all miss as raiders, right? We miss putting up in combat buffs. Do you miss that? Because it's back. It should just be an aura. I don't know why it's not. It's fun. It's this animation. Warriors are going to run around like this all day and just spam this. Because it's just going to be a thing. The only other major change to talk about is the main niche of the Arms Warrior, or the Warrior in Fury as well, with Execute. Now, it's 10 rage on live and eats up to an additional 30. Now it is 2240. It still has the if foe survives, the rage spent is refunded. 30% of the rage spent is refunded, so 12 at 40 rage. Only usable on 20% health or lower for a large amount of physical damage. And we can't really show off Execute much without going over here to the Morale Booster dummy, which is a dummy that takes 100,000% increased damage, and it looks quite funny. If you need to see big numbers again, there are your big numbers. If you'd like, just see your big numbers. There you go. Can I get a crit Execute, please? No? No crit Execute? Okay, there's 4 million. We're good to go. You saw how much the Colossus Smash hit for, though, because it does have quite a bit higher range of damage. Because the amount of damage that Execute does, the tooltip, what it says there, is the maximum amount of damage based on the 40 rage, so it goes down from there. You are hearing that right as well. I was told that this is the old Execute noise. So if you missed that old Execute noise, it has returned. But obviously putting that Execute into the CS window. Oh, that was weird. My animation totally broke there. There are some animation breakage on the upright orc. I don't know if it's just the orc model or if it's Arms Warrior. Like if you spam slam, my axe will disappear. Sometimes it just, see like that? I don't know why. It's just alpha will beta, gem will epsilon, etc., etc. So that is still, of course, the a core functionality of the Arms Warrior. Execute is a big deal. A lot of arms damage happens in the execute window, even though beforehand, because of the change to your mastery and the consistent damage that your deep wounds will do, I wonder how much damage is going to be just in the execute window for arms versus where it is now, where a warrior can be not even top 10, and then execute happens, and then they're suddenly second. That may still be a thing. I don't know if it'll be as egregious, though. Now, let's put together some builds here with all this knowledge. Oh, I didn't go over Whirlwind. It's the same. That's probably why I didn't go over it. Whirlwind is the same. Very little damage in an AoE. Hits 3 times per target that's hit. Well, let's go over Whirlwind real quick and how a build incorporated around Whirlwind might be. So, there are 2 ways you can incorporate Whirlwind, and the way that the talents have been laid out now, there are very good talent rows. There are a lot of good positive feedback during the testing stream earlier today, where a lot of people that are playing Warrior right now were like, oh, there's some choice that I can move these around based on the encounter type or the play style that I'm going for. So with Deep Wounds, and we have Trauma selected, there is a very possible build you can do that you ignore Slam almost all together that is very single target focused. So we have Dreadnought already, which is 2 charges of Overpower. And this can go one of 2 ways. We're talking about Whirlwind first off, so we'll bring up Fervor of Battle is 145% increased damage to the primary target. We'll also take Cleave, which I'll go over more in a moment. And we will take, you can either take Sudden Death or Skull Splitter in this case. Skull Splitter is a new ability, which is essentially a free cooldown restricted slam that generates 30 rage. So we'll just grab that. And right off the bat, you notice that you can get some buttons on the Arms Warrior now for sure. And we're going to keep Trauma right now. Trauma is the easiest passive. It also applies with Whirlwind. So Fervor of Battle, increasing the damage of your Whirlwind on a single target, can feed right into the 20% bleed damage that Trauma provides. And we took Cleave because Cleave essentially will replace Slam when it's coming off cooldown, and it deals more damage than Slam baseline, at least depending on how you're looking at the Alpha 4 percentages. Because Slam will do a little bit more on the tooltip, Cleave is a little bit less because it does cleave everything in front of you. But the key factor here is that Cleave applies your mastery. Slam will only apply Trauma. So Trauma is Slam, Whirlwind, Execute. Your mastery is Mortal Strike, Cleave, Execute, Blade Storm. So Execute hits both with Trauma and Deep Wound, which is also why I said you can take Sudden Death here. This is your legendary ring you currently have on live. The exact same functionality. It is 2.5 times haste RPPM, roughly 3 a minute at this current gear level. So Sudden Death works with this build too, but I found out that there is a bit of a rage problem with this build, so we'll just show off Skull Splitter because it is an on-demand rage gain. So if we chop in here, we want that rage. We will apply this, but this is going to be a very single target, smooth build that you just rotate in through all of these abilities. You have a lot of like micro cooldowns in a way, but you have not only your trauma bleed happening and see what you bottom out, and then you get your Skull Splitter right back to spend more rage. So put that cleave back up. But you have trauma floating a lot, and because you have 2 ways in the base rotation, at least here, to apply deep wounds, you gain more benefit from your deep wounds, your mastery passive. But now, instead of hitting Slam, why don't we just hit Whirlwind instead? There's no reason to hit Slam in this build. Just hit Whirlwind. You're hitting single targets. It slows the rotation down a little bit. So you gotta really watch where your rage spending is, since it does cost 30 rage. But if you don't like hitting Slam, the damage difference of a traumaed Fervor of Battled Whirlwind is going to easily make you not miss Slam at all. You can take it off your bars. Just take it off your bars completely. There's no reason to hit it. But of course, if you took another build here we'll go over, this is one option. Trauma does sort of stack its damage the same way it does on live. So multiple hits within the trauma window will add more damage to it. So if you do get lucky enough to get a lot of rage there, depending on procs with saving rage when you're using your overpower window, then you will add more damage into the trauma bleed there. But this could be a potential. I'm not sure. Blizzard has changed their mind about using AoE abilities in single target, maybe. I don't know. But you use Whirlwind in single target, and Cleave is your only single target option in that tier. Do that again, do this, do one of these. But you definitely have quite a bit of juggling to do with the Arms Warrior, at least spec'd like this. But Skull Splitter really helps Field to get those moments of rage starving to not be so severe. Alternatively, if you actually like Slam and you're still predominantly doing a single target, we'll keep Cleave here because, again, it does replace a Slam regardless now and then. We'll take Mortal Combo and Sudden Death, keeping Trauma and Cleave talented. Dreadnought, we didn't read it, but it does 2 charges in your overpower, and it will increase Mortal Strike's damage by an additional 10%, which means it's a 60% bonus if you have 2 charges, 30 without versus the 20 and 40. And then Mortal Combo, which has been changed. Right now on live, it's just 2 charges of Mortal Strike. Mortal Combo now is sort of a back and forth, almost Windwalker Monk style. A equals B is stronger. Mortal Strike will increase the damage of your next Overpower, Slam, or Execute. Now, Overpower has no deep wounds or trauma synergy, but right off the bat, now you can see hitting your Mortal Strike, Mortal Combo, and into a Slam will increase the Slam damage, granting more trauma. Or Mortal Combos, Mortal Strike into Sudden Death, or going back and forth between Mortal Combo procs into Overpowered, because Overpowered does automatically crit, and giving it a 15% higher damage scale is not bad. What we have here, we'll go to put 2 of these up, and then we'll hit our Mortal Strike, and then we'll hit our Execute. Then we'll hit our Cleave, just because we want to hit it. We don't need to hit a Slam, because we can always use our Mortal Combo procs on Overpowered instead of the Slams. We got Tactician proc there, so we'll use this. We got a Execute proc. Probably should have Mortal Strike, then Executed, because we buff Mortal Combo into the Sudden Death proc. So the little things like this to play around with these 2 different styles of the very single target focused, where you have a bit of a juggle in your Tactician reset window, but then also very much a rotation that can add a little bit of pizzazz with the RNG of the reset window and Sudden Death, but then where you put your Mortal Combo is also interesting too. But again, every now and then we'll just be replacing a Slam with a Cleave, because it will do more damage because of deep wounds. But again, this one, you're not hitting, you don't have Fervor of Battle, so we're not hitting Whirlwind. But that also could be there too. The rage on this build, it's a little bit slower. Sudden Death procs at roughly 3 a minute. When you do Sudden Death into a mob that doesn't die, you will be refunded 12 rage. So it's not as much rage as multiple Skull Splitters every minute, because by default, Skull Splitter will give you 90 rage per minute, because of just any haste will make it a 20-second cooldown. It's 21 seconds modified by haste, but Sudden Death is 2 or 3 executes, and that's only 36-ish rage a minute versus 90. So, but the damage there is obviously a trade-off too, right? Because Skull Splitters are not gonna hit as hard as executes. Duh. However, you could also take War Machine for this same build, even though I think War Machine will probably have a better synergy in a different build we'll show off next. So War Machine moved over here, was a Fury Warrior talent, now it is here for Arms, where your auto attacks will generate 10% more rage. Killing an enemy instantly grants you 10 rage and will give you 30% movement speed for 8 seconds. Movement speed's nice, PvP, maybe dungeon oriented. I don't think it's going to be that useful in raids. The extra auto attack rage and killing an enemy giving you rage, though, is neat. Mostly because rage has been changed for Arms. Let me go over to my notes. Rage on live right now is you gain an auto attack on live is 27 non-crit and 35 rage on a crit. In BFA, it looks to be 23.3 rage on a non-crit and 30 on a critical strike. With War Machine, that goes up to 25.6 non-rage. The 0.6 means that, so on the 0.3, every 3 autos, you'll gain 1 extra rage. With War Machine, every other auto, you gain 1 extra rage. And then every 4, you technically have gained 2. And then 33 on a crit. So War Machine is just going to be a lot more passive rage generation with this build. But you don't get the Mortal Strike procs, so you are a bit more focused on weaving slams a little more aggressively to hopefully get your Tactician procs. But again, just put Cleave in there because it puts up deep wounds instead of using a slam. But again, this test character has very little base haste, so I don't know if Arms Warriors are going to want like 20% baseline, mostly for the auto attack generation. But the walkout charge meta of the Arms Warrior between auto attack swings is definitely still a thing, I was told, because it's sort of this in and out gameplay style. And considering we live in a world with Havoc Demon Hunters and now the new Survival Hunter, a Arms Warrior walking out to gain rage doesn't seem incredibly far-fetched. Not the Pokemon, just like the actual act of being far-fetched. It doesn't seem that out there to do so. But those are sort of the very single target focused builds you can put together, at least focused around Dreadnought. You can change the single target feel with the Fervor of Battle, Mortal Combo style, regardless with any of the 3 top 15s. And of course, if you want to weave in Trauma or not, you can take Anchor Management, which is every 20 rage, reduces the cooldown of Colossus Smash and Bladestorm by 1 second. And then possibly take Rend. And Rend will lead us over to a different build entirely. This, again, same thing if you want to keep War Machine, Sudden Death, Skull Splitter. These are very situational based on the needs of your rage management on any in particular encounter. But Rend being 30 rage will always give you a second off. Every 2 uses will be 3 seconds in total, right? 20, 40, 60. And using Rend with Anger Management could also be very much a single target focus, due to the fact that you have to recast Rend quite often. But there we go again. Again, the build slows down quite a bit, but you are going to gain the huge benefit of the cooldown time on your CS window, which gives you that back more often. See, that rage is crazy, though. A lot of these rage-based builds, at least the very single target-based build, I really wonder if Skull Splitter is just way too good. Or just like this character just has too little base haste for it to really matter. I'm trying to get a Tactician proc there before I hit Mortal Strike. Nope. But having more uptime on that, and of course, you auto-attack up to 3 times during a Blade Storm. So you'll be using Blade Storm, and during that amount of damage and keeping deep wounds up and refreshing it, you will of course gain rage. So that doesn't have to be looked at too much. That obviously I haven't weaved in any Blade Storms right now, but you're going to, obviously. So there's differences there, right? Mortal Combo doesn't have as much synergy with Rend, but you're still going to be Mortal Striking. You're still going to put damage into Overpower, and definitely executes when the execute window happens. But again, you can just take Sudden Death for that. Sudden Death saves rage and generates rage when you don't kill the target. So with Rend here, though, let's do with a different build. And this is a weird one. I'm not sure if this is going to be a thing for Arms, but there is a bleed build. And we're going to take... We'll leave War Machine here, because the auto attack generating more rage and possibly getting the kills in this window is possible. We're going to go grab Ravager, which is the Throne Blade Storm. We'll also take Fervor of Battle, and we will also take Collateral Damage. When your abilities damage a second target due to sweeping strikes, they refund 20% of their rage cost. Rend is very expensive, 30 rage, but it is sweeping strikesable. So you have to keep checking Sweeping Strikes for what affects it. But Rend is Sweeping Strikesable, which is a weird sentence. So there is this possibility to use Ravager and Rend and collateral damage and then Fervor of Battle, if that's going to be your cup of tea. Mortal Combo could work here too, because you're doing this very cleavy AoE build. This is going to be a bleed spread build, which is all about putting Rend on everything. You activate your Sweeping Strikes, and then you just tab Rend. And Rend will be on everything, because it's the target +1. I don't know how important and good that will be, but because of the burst rage generation of Ravager, that could be a thing for AoE packs. Just because the rage refund during Sweeping Strikes is very beneficial. It's just, maybe. We brought it up on stream today as this like bleed-oriented build, which people want to find ways to use Rend, and that could be a thing. Both Rend and Trauma work properly as bleeds. They are physical dots that ignore armor. But what also could be happening here is the very AoE-focused build, which Skull Splitter, while we're talking about collateral damage, does work with Sweeping Strikes when you talent it. However, you do not gain 60 rage. You gain 30. You just hit 2 targets with Skull Splitter, but will not generate all that rage. So collateral damage and Warbreaker are very, very AoE oriented. Cleave is the only talent in this row that has any single target benefit at all, hence why I showed it off in 2 different single target builds. But now let's look at Warbreaker, Avatar, Sudden Death, Ravager. Fervor of Battle could be used here. I will honorable mention Deadly Calm. Deadly Calm is on live, where during Battle Cry, the cost of all it reduces the rage cost of all your abilities by 100% for 10 seconds. Is this version. On live, it was 100%. It's now 75. But it's a 1 minute cooldown on live, or less because of Convergence of Fate, obviously. Deadly Calm is 2 minutes. And why I didn't bring this up until now is because Deadly Calm just doesn't feel like it does anything. It's very burstable, which you can couple it with this window, which I'm about to do here. But I don't know if it's necessary, because all you're going to do in this Avatar, Warbreaker, Ravager window with hopefully Sudden Death procs with your Sweeping Strikes up is just go to town. And you can use, I will pop Deadly Calm right here, but I don't know if it really does a whole lot. I can't really even spend my rage with you just using Ravager and the previous build there. So, oh, I didn't hit Warbreaker, did I? No. Well, just imagine I did. Yo! So when you Warbreaker, you have to do it before your Ravager, because it lasts for 10 seconds. Ravager only lasts for 6, 7 with haste or whatnot. You have this, every time it ticks, you gain 7 rage. You're auto-attacking. If you get Sudden Death procs, you're saving rage and using it. You probably maybe wait for a Sudden Death proc to hit Sweeping Strikes in this AoE ensemble here. Otherwise, you're just going to hit Whirlwind, right? Because you're avatared, everything is debuffed by 30% increased damage. Your Ravager's generating rage for you, and then you'll Sweeping Strikes. And remember, single target ability, so your Mortal Strike, your Slam, your Overpower, etc. Hopefully your Sudden Death procs, hitting 2 targets. That's a very AoE-focused build. So we'll actually do this and do that. But see, even without Deadly Calm, during that whole burst window, there's so much rage that I don't know if it does anything. Because that was 2 different times with it, and like there was not a whole lot of difference in how much damage it did, or how much damage you would have lost with Deadly Calm. You could have tied it in after the fact with Deadly Calm. I get that. That's definitely a thing. The only use for Deadly Calm that we can think of is a build that focuses very, very, very heavily on Execute. So, or the burst window for Execute. Now, because of the Execute timing on bosses lasting as long as it might, we'll take Anger Management here. Whatever's just still on cooldown. Come on, 8 seconds. We'll keep Deadly Calm. We'll keep Avatar. We'll take Collateral Damage. We'll keep Sudden Death. So imagine a fight that lasts 2 minutes in execute window, right? Mythic Argus, for example. You're at 20% and lower for a long time. The Rend Skull Splitter combo is there, but then this... It's so weird. I don't know how this fits. I'm trying to like put together my thoughts on Deadly Calm. And so collateral damage execute. You get back 20 rage on 2 targets. So collateral damage makes you execute your other target. But you get the rage refund back from the main target not dying, the main boss. And if there's another target nearby, you'll gain 8 rage back, 20% of 40. On sudden death procs and on any execute that actually uses 40. During the Deadly Calm window, when abilities cost nothing, that may count as costing their maximum amount. So for 10 seconds, and this target dummy takes 100,000% more damage, but I can actually use executes on this dummy, you can do stuff like this. I can't hit Deadly Calm. There we go. I got a sudden death proc at the very end there. So, I mean, depending on the heroism window, or if you actually have a lot of haste on your Arms Warrior, which this build alone brought up the haste topic. More global cooldowns is more executes, because you're spending 40 rage. You get 2 seconds off each CS. Right now, Deadly Calm does not work with anger management. I assume it is a bug, but it might not be a thing. Maybe this could be too powerful together, but it's a 2-minute cooldown, which you're only going to be able to use like once, maybe twice on a boss in the execute window for this style of just spam execute all day. And then that becomes a thing of math, right? Is more execute spam more damage than just mortal comboing to put 15% more damage into executes? I'm not sure. Also, this troll's daggers are all broken, so just don't ignore that. But you'd want anger management for this type of spam build, because you'd want more Colossus Smash windows for more executes being empowered by 30%, etc., etc. And hopefully executes that are free, that are a 40 rage max. But, and of course in the Avatar window, sudden death procs, barring anything that happens in that window. This is the only way I can think of Deadly Calm working. And everything else we talked about on stream today was just like, Deadly Calm is there, and it's, If its cooldown was a little bit lower, it would always sync up with Avatar and then be too powerful, which is why it's probably 2 minutes. Or even if it was a minute, it would always sync up with the burst window more often with Warbreaker. So then it would be too good for AoE situations, where you would Warbreaker into Ravager and just spam Whirlwind and Sweeping Strikes and Mortal Strikes and everything like that, right? It'd be too good then. But I don't know if that would be too good. I think that would just make it comparable, because I showed you the Fervor Slam replacement Trauma Dreadnought style. And then Mortal Combo just works really well with Trauma and Sudden Death, or the Skull Splitter build. So Deadly Calm just fits in this weird spot as being probably the only talent currently that makes you go, eh. Because Cleave, even though Cleave is kind of weird to be a talent, it's still the only single target choice in this row. And it's more damage than a Slam. And it's still 20 rage. But those are the different builds, like the 3 to 4 different builds or styles we figured out for the Arms Warrior. Rather varied in how your button and priority management would work out. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about those. Real quick to wrap up your utility, of course, defensive stance is still here. Bounding Stride and Second Wind are all the same. So is Stormbolt and Double Time. I do want to caveat the end here with Impending Victory being brought over. And this may not seem like a big deal, but because you have defensive stance, and it mostly becomes this incredible necessary talent to take all the time, having the ability to on-demand Death Strike or mini Health Stone yourself as a DPS Arms Warrior. Fury has this too. They've both been baselined. All 3 warrior specs have Impending Victory. It is 15% of your max health versus the main heal on Victory Rush being 30%. But Victory Rush, you need to land a killing blow. When are you landing killing blows in raids? Impending Victory also costs 10 rage, so it at least has a 9% chance to proc Tactician. So even using your ability to heal yourself, it doesn't even do that much less damage than a slam. Also can still feed into the Tactician loop, which is your main loop of Arms Warrior. Whereas Stormbolt is free as your single target range stun, and obviously Double Time is more charged, which is more rage in and of itself as well, and more mobility. Impending Victory being here actually feels like an interesting, curious choice for raiders, because having basically a health stone a minute, because a health stone is what, 30% of your health, this is 15% twice a minute, is really powerful and might leave you able to counteract some damage incoming on the Arms Warrior and not be forced into D-stance. So you can take Bounding Stride or Second Wind, and Second Wind may work on certain encounters where you're not getting AoE'd or dotted to death, because it will automatically start ticking on you and heal you after 5 seconds of not taking damage. But so many DPS warriors right now have to take D-stance. So think about that for Impending Victory. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Arms Warrior and the changes overall to the spec. Let me know how much you're ready for straight-backed boys to be in Battle for Azeroth. Check out the VOD if you want all of the nitty-gritty and the hour plus trying to figure out deep wounds. Check out any of the other First Pass videos. Subscribe to the YouTube channel right here to stay up to date on all the coverage I'll be doing in the Battle for Azeroth Alpha into Beta. Island expeditions will definitely be a thing in the future. Hopefully Warfronts, as well as more First Passes and Second Passes with Azerite gear in the future. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next First Pass in the Battle of Azeroth. I think Fury Warrior and Prot are up next, and then the poll on Twitter right now to pick the next 4 classes.